All right, let's talk now about some of the leukocytes. So now leukocytes are white blood cells, and leukocytes can be divided up into two groups. Some of them have a lot of granules, and so they're called granulocytes, and some of them don't have granules, and they're called agranulocytes. We're going to talk about the granulocytes right now. So the granulocytes are white blood cells, leukocytes that have granules. And they're going to have, all of these leukocytes are going to have very specific jobs. And the one that is the most common in terms of, if you do a blood smear and you look at white blood cells, about 50% of them are going to be what we call a neutrophil. And a neutrophil, it's like kind of like the police that are out there, or army maybe, that are out there looking for things that don't belong. And anything that is not you, non-self, anything that is not you, they're going to eat it. So the neutrophils, they're going to phagocytize any foreign matter that they find. Now, and they're, as we've said, they're very common. They're easy to distinguish if we were looking at them in lab, which we didn't get a chance to do. They have a multi-lobed nucleus, so they have this sort of 3 to 5 like little balls that are connected together that are the nucleus. And so they're going to be the main phagocytic cell that you have. The next of these is going to be something called an eosinophil. And early on, when they started looking at these different white blood cells, they would stain them and they'd say, wow, look at these. These are a little bit different color, even with, we stain them and they have a different color. And so you could distinguish them by their color because they stained a little bit differently. And then when they studied what is their job, what they found is that they're there to fight off parasites. So if a person has a parasitic infection, they'll have elevated eosinophils. And so eosinophils are there to help fight off infections, parasite infections. And they also are there to deal with antigen-antibody complexes. Now, when we talk about the immune system, we'll talk about how your body produces antibodies. And what an antibody is it's a chemical that can go out and bind to a foreign substance, something that isn't supposed to be there. And it's a chemical that will bind for a very specific thing. So if you've got a disease, you have antibodies against that disease. So the organisms get captured by the antibodies, by these proteins, and they end up in these big complexes that are called antigen-antibody complexes. And so what's the point of that? So you captured them. What are you going to do with them now? Well, eosinophils come along and they eat them. They destroy them. So that's how this process works. One of the ways that you deal with infections is through the use of the eosinophils going along and digesting the antigen-antibody complexes, the disease antibody complex. Now, one of the types of processes in the immune system is called inflammation, something called inflammation. And the point of inflammation is to isolate a problem. Isolate an infection. So you flood the area with water, and this will help to prevent the spread from one location of your body to another. We have what we call the basophils. They're the most granular of all of the blood cells. They're going to release something called histamine. You might be sitting there thinking, histamine? That sounds like something I'd buy at the drugstore, right? Antihistamine. Well, that's exactly it. When you have an allergy and you've accidentally activated these basophils and they're filling your nose with all this fluid, your nose runs. And you take a chemical called an antihistamine to deal with the with the inflammation. So basophils are there to help with inflammation.